I got to think that the numbers 1980 are going to be used less on social media for the next year than they have been for, I don't know, 41 years or ever since the advent of social media. If you know what I'm talking about, Georgia's won a national championship, first one in 41 years. And if you root for Georgia, then you know how much abuse you've had to take over that year and how long it's been. Savannah Lee Richardson included. She writes for Dawn of the Dog, and she is a major Georgia football fan, diehard, been on here a million times. Always enjoy the conversation, but this is the first one that we've able to have with you as a national champion.
I remember the Rose Bowl conversation and how excited we all were, but I'm pretty sure this one's going to top that one because it's so sweet to finally say that Georgia is the national champion of college football. We have been waiting so long. It's the first time in my entire life that I can say that my favorite team and ever is the champions of their respected sport, and it's just such a bittersweet moment. Last night was a roller coaster of emotions, and I'm still kind of in a state of shock, but it feels good to wake up and know that it wasn't all a dream. We're not having to play it over again today.
Yeah, I got to remember that everyone's not as old as I am that remembers Herschel Walker and watching the Sugar Bowl in 1981 and beating Notre Dame for the national championship. So it's only some of us out there that remember that. And it's nice to get 141 years later, even if you were a Georgia fan back then. All right, man, let's go big picture before we dive into the specifics, just in regards to Stetson Bennett. Kirby Smart gets the monkey off his back as well. I thought, I'll start with this. I thought that the meeting of Kirby Smart and Nick Saban at midfield, even though I couldn't really hear a word that was being said on TV, you could just tell that, Nick Saban doesn't want to lose a national championship game. You know that he's hurting for his players. He's pissed and all that as a competitor, but you could tell that there was still a lot of him that was just happy that if he had to lose, it was to Kirby Smart. Nick Saban was smiling more than he does after winning a national championship at midfield.
Yeah, I will say that I was hands deep bawling, just trying to actually realize that it was real. But I agree. I kind of went back and watched everything, and you could just tell he was kind of like a proud Papa Bear. Like the person that stuck around with him for I think 11 years on his Alabama staff, and from the Dolphins to LSU to Alabama, and to see him finally do it and get over the hump, and then do it to his mentor too. He had to feel deep down that such like a proud moment. And even though Alabama got beat and he didn't want to lose his 8th national championship or whatever, but Nick Saban is one of those guys that these assistant coaches, especially ones like Kirby who stuck around for a long time, they mean a lot to him. And with him not having any sons, these are like his sons. So when they finally do get to beat him, it's a bittersweet moment for him, I'm sure. But there's no telling what those two said to each other. But I guarantee you Kirby's found a way to take some kind of dig and kind of just be like, finally, Nick, thanks for thanks for not finding a way to win this ball game. But then again, Georgia didn't give up at the end, and they finally finished they finally finished this game, and it was great to see. But Nick Saban, I agree, like even with him talking to Holly Rowe afterwards, and it was they were a really good team and this and that, and it was just really respectful from Nick Saban, and you don't expect anything less from him. So while he probably is steaming in the film room this morning, you got to think he sent Kirby another text this morning congratulating him too. So that's what college football is all about, is when two coaches really flat out respect each other, and Kirby finally got the upper hand this time around. Thank goodness.
Yeah. So Kirby Smart takes over a top 10 program in the country and he upgrades it. But he has just taken abuse after abuse after abuse, that he's not the guy that can take him all the way to the top. He's built this just recruiting machine. And I think he's been given a little bit of a bad take on that he can just recruit, and then he pretty much just lets the players just run out there and run around and get the job done and hit people and win the games, and he doesn't have anything to do with it past that, where he's obviously a great football mind. So, he gets to place himself on that upper tier with just a few guys that have won national championships.
6 years ago, Georgia hired him to take this program to the next level because they felt like the Bulldogs have plateaued with Coach Rick, and unfortunately they did. As Georgia fans should all love Coach Rick because he was the first big part in getting the Dogs to where they are right now. And Kirby Smart just took it and kind of elevated it to the next level by increasing recruiting on the offensive line, increasing recruiting on the defensive front that desperately needed it, and it showed. And I don't care what anybody says, that sucker can develop a linebacker. He's got coaches that can develop an offensive lineman, a running back, a quarterback who no one ever thought would ever be in this situation, who many people wanted them to lose because they wanted to be right so bad. And Kirby Smart should not have any doubters anymore. That man is the right guy for the job in Athens. He needs a contract extension for life. Keep him at all costs, because what he's doing is buying into the kids, buying into this university, and proving that 41 years ago, it wasn't just Georgia happening to win a national championship. Like 6 years in, and he's already doing it. And like he said last night, I hope we don't have to wait 41 more years. And if he continues to coach the way he is, I don't think Georgia will. But I'm so glad Kirby Smart is the head football coach at the University of Georgia, because he is the next, in my opinion, the next great college football mind that we're going to see take over the sport.
And just to give some historical perspective for people that don't know Georgia football or just started watching college football in general, you saw Vince Dooley at certain times during the game. He is kind of the godfather of Georgia football. He was there forever. He was the guy who won the last national championship. Then they had a number of coaches like Ray Goff and Jim Donnan, and there was a string of 7-5, 8-4 kind of campaigns, and that's what Georgia football was from like the late 80s up until Mark Richt. Mark Richt, he finished in the top 10 in the country 8 of his 15 years, typically went to major bowl games, had a great record, just couldn't get over the hump. And a partial disclaimer for Mark Richt is if there was a college football playoff, he probably would have made it in like 02, 05, 07, 2012. Mm-hmm. So who knows what he would have been able to do. He just didn't have a college football playoff. He had to make the final 2. He set it up as a top 10 program for Kirby Smart, who was just worked his rear end off to recruit first and foremost. Just an amazing 19 5-stars on the roster and just a loaded roster. And of course, you got to develop and you got to strategize to get those guys in the right position. So here we are. But one of those non-5 stars or 4 stars is Stetson Bennett. And Savannah and I have talked about this in the past. He's got to be the most targeted individual in college football, at least over the last few years. I have not seen anything like it for a guy that's generally done his job. He's made mistakes here and there in some big games. Yes. But last night, the turning point of the game, which wouldn't have seemed like a turning point of the game for Georgia, because it seemed like the turning point of the game for Alabama was, I'm just thinking at the time. So what I'm thinking and feeling has to be increased 1,000,000 times for you when I'm thinking, oh, this is Georgia's luck. Stetson Bennett's trying to avoid a sack. He's trying to get rid of the ball, and we all know what happened. By rule, I believe it was a good call, but basically what he did versus what Bryce Young did on the first drive of the game was exactly the same thing. They're desperately just trying to get rid of the ball while somebody's got him in the grasp. Bryce Young happened to just basically spike the ball on the ground, which didn't understand why that was not intentional grounding. And Stetson Bennett, came within that much of actually having his arm moving forward and it being ruled as a pass. The ball, I was with Kirk Herbstreit on that was assuming the entire time that the ball went out of bounds. What are they talking about? The ball went out of bounds. Well, no, the ball was recovered by an Alabama player, who had his toe just on the sideline. And it just seemed like, wow. I can imagine what was going through your mind at the time.
Oh, I thought it was over. Every other time something like that has happened in the past, that would be the final dagger in Georgia's chest. And that's when they would deflate and they couldn't find a way to overcome it. And even though they gave the touchdown up right there, Stetson Bennett, I'm trying not to get choked up about it, but what he said to Holly Rowe after the game of him being like, I wasn't about to be the reason Georgia lost this football game, proves like what kind of love and determination he has to be the starting quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs. And he did it. He put the team on his back and got it to A.D. Mitchell on a free play. And that should tell anybody who doubts him, like, he pays attention. He understands what's going on the field. And he knew that guy jumped off sides. So he took advantage of the free play, got a touchdown. Okay, momentum going. And then you get a huge stop from the defense, a 3 and out. And then you get it go down the field with Zamir White and then James Cook. And it's just like, okay, is this real? Is this really real? Like, is Georgia actually going to do this? And you could just slowly see that momentum and tide shifting towards the Dogs and the light getting brighter and brighter. And then he threw a suspicious pass to Brock Bowers that, it wasn't pretty at all. But he called it. Of course he called it because he's Brock Bowers. And then he saw the end zone and nothing was going to stop him until he got in there. And some people thought that they should have gone for 2, but Georgia's defense wanted that moment, and they wanted to prove, even if they were as dog-tired as they were, they hunkered down one more time. And I know Larry Munson is in heaven doing a jig because they finally hunkered down one more time. And that pick 6 by Keely Ringo, I really hope it doesn't get overshadowed because that was crucial and huge. You know, you start the season with a pick 6 by Chris Smith and you end it. And that kind of comes full circle there. But Stetson put that team on his back and did what a national championship winning quarterback does. No matter how big he is, no matter how strong, no matter how tall, no matter his 5-star, 3-star, 2-star walk-on rating, like, he did what he was supposed to do. And he capitalized on it. And I'm just extremely proud. And he silenced the haters for good. And if anybody has anything negative to say about him, turn your Georgia card in. You're not a real Dog fan.
And going back to the drive after the Stetson Bennett fumble, Alabama led 18-13. And we'll get to the defense and what it did against Alabama in just a second. But it was pointed out during the broadcast, you got to give some credit to Todd Monk and how he approached the next drive, because they had the drive for the touchdown before that where it was all generally Zamir White, James Cook, Kenny McIntosh, run. They got the running game going. The offensive line got assertive coming out of halftime, and they could have thought, okay, there's plenty of time left in this game, and we're down by 5 points. We're going to go to the run game because that's what happened before, and that's what we were able to do to score the touchdown. But, man, they went play action. He opened up. I'm trying to think. Number 7. Can't think of his name.
Jermaine Burton.
Yes, Jermaine Burton. Obviously, yes. Hit him on a long pass, and then they got going, and he let pretty much Stetson Bennett take that drive.
Yeah, 4 for 4 83 yards and 2 touchdowns Stetson did after the fumble. And that's just, it's huge. And it was a great pass to Jermaine Burton. Jermaine came up really big right there too, needed him to. And I think I mentioned to you before the game, like, you needed George Pickens to kind of have a big moment, and him drawing that pass interference was a huge moment for him. It wasn't even just the catch. The catch in the first half was huge. It kind of gave Georgia enough confidence to say, okay, we can do this. And then it was him drawing a personal or pass interference in the second half. But Jermaine Burton being able to hold on to that ball and catch it and get that first down was huge. And it just seemed like every kid on that team knew, like, okay, no matter what happens here, we have to find a way to do it. And they did. And I feel like that's something that Georgia's teams in the past didn't have. And I would even, pull it back to those skull sessions that everybody talks about and how they've come together and they know each other and they know how important this game was. And so it was really nice to finally see them pull it out and finish a big game like this, because usually when something like a fumble that big, which would lead to a suspicious roughing the passer penalty and the Georgia defense giving up a rare touchdown that deep in the end zone, or red zone. So that's usually that last dagger that ends it all, and Alabama finds a way to win, especially when you saw them kind of marching down the field with Brian Robinson and being able to get 5 and 6 yards at a time. Well, they put the pressure on it. They did their job. And then Stetson said, nope, not today. We are doing this. And I'm not hearing another negative word about me. And I got to give Todd Monken credit. He tried to be a little creative and tried to be too smart for his own good throughout the entire game. But when it mattered, he was like, all right, man, let's get back to the basics and do what has worked all year long, which I don't know why he wouldn't do it all game. But Alabama's defense did a great job preparing for Georgia too. But when it mattered, they found a way. And those running backs did it for Nick and Sony, and he did it for Jake Fromm and Matt Stafford and all the rest of them.
Yeah, those are definitely two great defenses. Georgia picked on Tyreek Jackson a little bit and was able to take advantage of that matchup, but he's going to be a great player, but he's only a freshman. And yeah, those are, I'm going to say, the two best defenses in the country. So looking at the Georgia defense, so I'm sure you got sick of hearing between the SEC championship game and now that, well, they were overrated, they played a bad schedule, they didn't play a quarterback, all that. And Alabama obviously had a great game plan, and they pass protected great in the SEC championship game. But we saw Georgia put pressure on Bryce Young, and I thought that was the most important part of the game. They also played amazing red zone defense. The one Alabama touchdown was a 15-yard drive. It's not even a drive. It was just an amazing defensive performance to hold Alabama to 18 points.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about Nolan Smith and him making it a point to talk about leaving a legacy and how this defense wanted to do just that. And they wanted to be able to bring their kids to Athens and say, hey, we won the first national championship in 41 years. And they stood up and they did their job. 39 quarterback hurries against Bryce Young. And they may have only sacked him once, but 39 quarterback hurries. And I don't know if it was you or I talked with a guy named Rob Brown on the radio hours before the game, and I mentioned that as well about how putting pressure on Bryce is going to be key because you got to get him to make a mistake, and he made a big one at the end of the ball game when Alabama usually runs down the field in a 2-minute drill and scores again, and all of a sudden, instead of 5 points or whatever it was, it's they're leading, and so Georgia's defense stood tough and 8 pass breakups too. Like I got to give the secondary a ton of credit, like. Oh, they stepped up in a big way because that's not what they did in the SEC championship game. And yes, Jameson Williams went down with a terrible injury, and I do genuinely hope he is okay because that young man's going to make a lot of money in the NFL. But when that happened, Georgia's secondary was able to really capitalize on those young wide receivers and prove a point. And you got to give it to Nakobe Dean and Channing Tindall and Nakobe just sitting there and getting in his face and making sure he knows, like, hey, dude, you can't do that again. We have to be as focused and as sharp as possible. I got to give it to my defense. It's so good to see them put the pressure on an Alabama quarterback when usually that doesn't happen. And 39 quarterback hurries. So many people are like, why does a quarterback hurry even matter? Like, why is that a stat? Well, it forced a pick six. It forced another interception. It forced mistakes left and right. And I think Georgia had 9 tackles for a loss versus 4, maybe. I don't remember the SEC championship number, but it was a significant increase. And Georgia's defense did their job. It didn't matter how tired Alabama made them by pushing down the field with Brian Robinson. They found the energy and they found a way. And credit to Dan Lanning, who could have been, his focus could have been elsewhere, but instead, between him, Glenn Schumann, and Will Muschamp, like, they called a heck of a ball game, and they made Nick Saban work for every bit of the success that they found on Monday night.
Absolutely. We got Savannah Lee Richardson here, Georgia fan, also Dawn of the Dog. So check her workout right there. All right. So we're going to make you shake out of 2021 and look forward to 22 a little bit. The NFL draft early deadline is approaching in regards to players declaring their eligibility. So who's out there that's declared or we're still waiting on?
I don't think anybody has publicly declared just yet outside of the seniors. Like Jordan Davis and them are obviously going because he's a major first-round draft pick and stuff. But, guys like Zamir White and Nakobe Dean, none of them have said anything unless they have said it by now. But those are 2 guys that could possibly, leave for the NFL draft, and I wouldn't blame him at all for it. Nakobe is one of those kind of kids that he's a mechanical engineer student, 4.0 GPA, and his mom and dad are huge on getting a degree and stuff. So that could sway him to stay one more year, but after the way he played and everything, I doubt it. He can always finish classes while playing in the NFL. So we'll see, but those are two guys for sure. Nolan Smith could be another guy that Georgia loses, even though I think he needs one more year to kind of really polish his skills. Trying to think of anybody else. George Pickens could be another guy. Even with his ACL tear, he could. I mean, he proved he's got some good hands with a big catch, and I think NFL scouts know just how talented he is on the field. So there's another name for sure. James Cook is probably leaving. I don't know. I don't think he has another year unless he uses the COVID one. Georgia could lose a bunch of their talent, but that's where this recruiting that you were talking about earlier comes into play. You got 5 stars waiting in the wings, just waiting for their opportunity to kind of get their shot. And now they kind of have they know what it takes to win, and they know how important the connection and stuff is. But Georgia could lose a hefty amount. The secondary, Lewis Seen has another year of eligibility. He could come back, but winning the MVP, he could also leave. So it's going to be an interesting week or so. I'm not necessarily 100% sure when that deadline is, but I'm watching it like a hawk because that's going to be a big content stuff for us because we've been predicting who could stay and who we want to stay. But and at the end of the day, Stetson has another year. So Stetson could come back, and that could cause all kinds of storms and everything else. But it's going to be an interesting few weeks and into the spring for sure of who's going to stay and who's going to go. But regardless, this team's they left a legacy. And so it wouldn't surprise me if the guys that felt like, or they were ready to go, they would go. So
I know that there's been some work done on the recruiting front since National Signing Day. There was a big pickup, about a week ago?
Yeah, Ernest Green, an offensive tackle or offensive lineman, a big pickup in my opinion. And then Georgia's got a couple of names left on the board, and Christian Miller and Shamar Stewart. They should be by February 2nd, which I believe is the February signing period. Those are two names. Georgia lost a corner, I believe he is Marcus Kilbrew, something like that. I can't think of his full name, but he decommitted and flipped to Texas A&M, which I really don't even know how Texas A&M has any more scholarships at this point. But with college football the way it is and the transfer portal, it's all a jumbled mess until you see the final 84 scholarship list. So there's that. But every time Georgia loses a kid, recruiting-wise, they usually flip somebody or bring in someone who's either more highly rated or something. So I have a feeling that Christian Miller, Shamar Stewart, who are 2 5-star guys, maybe, I believe they're both 2 5 stars, could end up coming to Georgia, which would be 2 huge additions to a defensive front that could possibly need it next season. So there's that. But, recruiting is going to be fun the next few weeks too because with the national championship, who knows? Somebody tweeted last night, Kirby Smart's already dominating the recruiting front, but now he's got a ring to flash. Whew, good luck. That man, you could just see the way he was talking to SportsCenter last night and on the field and everybody else. He has his gears are already grinding for next season. And even though he's enjoying the win, he's thinking about recruiting and he's thinking about who he can grab now that he has a ring that they didn't think that Georgia could win. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited. This national championship opens so much for Georgia, even though that they're already a top 10 team, top 5 recruiting team each year. So I'm excited. You have to get to me by February 2nd because I'll be able to give you more info on recruiting. But it's this. I'm just thinking about it as we're talking right now, how interesting it could turn out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So everything he's doing right in recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have that and then add the ring because, there's got to be a player here and there that thinks, okay, this guy's great. The program's awesome. They're doing everything right, but they haven't proven it that they can. Well, you got your proof of concept right there. That is scary. That is scary. Yes, Ernest Green is the 2nd rated guard center in the country out of California. Georgia going back out to California to get another player, the 2nd rated guard center in the country, 6'4.5", 330, third-rated player in the state of California, number 40 in the country, according to 247 Sports.
Brock's California. Jermaine Burton's a Calabasas kid. There's two guys right there that made big plays last night from California. Georgia doesn't care where it is. If they see a playmaker that's worthy of wearing the red and black and that they feel like can do the job, they're going to go out there and get him. And I think Lincoln Riley is going to make it a little harder to pull kids out of California, but Georgia's pulled kids away from Lincoln Riley for the last couple of years, so it doesn't – I mean, who knows?
I knew about Devontae Wyatt before last night, but I didn't realize how good he was. Man, that guy is a force.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting with Devontae because I believe he's one of the kids. He went JUCO 1 year and came back to Georgia, and then he could have left last year and gone to and probably would have been like a 4th or 5th round NFL draft pick. But he came back this year and worked his tail off and got better. And that's another coach that I think so many people don't even realize Georgia has a weapon in, and that's Trey Scott. He's young, he's fiery, and he's hungry, but he's gonna have 2 first-round draft picks in Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis. I think Devontae could go first round for sure, if not early second at this point, just because of how well he played down the stretch throughout this entire season. He may not be as big as Jordan Davis, but he's got just as much heart, and he's so exciting to watch. No, I never really thought he would ever amount to what he has done this season and then been able to accomplish. But his, aggressiveness off of the snap and the way he's able to kind of push through the line just as much as Jordan Davis has really been impressive. So I hope the draft scouts really given him opportunity. And I'm excited about the NFL draft day or workout days or whatever, and the combine and senior night and senior day, whatever it's called for the draft. So it's going to be exciting because there's so many kids now that have proven themselves that a bunch of scouts may have not looked at because Georgia has fallen short so many other times before. I don't even know if that really makes sense, but I'm just excited. You know me.
Lee Richardson's excited. She's pumped up. You gotta understand.
Y'all should take a sip every time I say I'm excited because y'all be having a good time by then.
Dawn of the Dogs, where you can catch Savannah, and of course on Twitter as well. Savannah, appreciate you stopping by. Congratulations once again.
Thanks, Mark. We did it. Georgia finally did it, and they are the 20. Okay, so it's the 2021 or 2022 national championships.
They're the national champions of 2021. It is the 2021 season.
Then why do they have 2022 on their jerseys? It's so confusing.
That was the college football playoff of 22. It's a little confusing, but it's the 2021 college football season.
Whatever it is, they're national champions, and they have bragging rights for the next 365 days, and it's so sweet. Florida fans can't say nothing. Ohio State fans can't say anything. Alabama, no, you were competitive for sure, but Tennessee, Auburn, all of these SEC opponents who talk trash all year long cannot say anything, and so it's really exciting. Exciting again.